Creation from Omkar. The root of all creation is Omkar, which is Ganesha with attributes. This manifests at three levels: the spiritual, physical, and mental. The physical bodies are also addressed as primordial nature. The spiritual is the tamasic body, the physical is the rajasic body, and the mental is sattvic in nature. The spiritual body manifested the 5 organs of action and the 5 sensory organs. The sattvic mental body gave birth to the 10 types of tutelary gods, while rajasic physical body created the 5 sense organs and the 5 organs of action. Each of them had 3 variants in the form of 3 states of consciousness. In every soul there are Devas and Daityas, as stated in the Upanishad. The Devas reside where the Jiva is firm in his Swadharma, while the Daityas have an impact on the consciousness where Swadharma is not followed. Since only those who perform their dharma ordained karmas enjoy the affection of the gods, it is they who rise in consciousness. In the end, they attain the grace of Ganesha and become blessed. Shri Gajanan Prabhu tells King Varenya, now listen to how a man can attain skills in a human body. After going through lives in 84 lakh species, he would definitely have gathered the knowledge and experience of eating, sleeping, procreation, emotions of fear, and the process of growth. But it is only in a human body that he gets the highest ascent and or downfall. Therefore, it is only when the soul takes a human birth that he can make efforts to get liberated from the recurring cycle of birth and death, and not in the lives of other different kinds of species. The wheel of life itself does not revolve indiscriminately. It revolves as it is made to revolve. The only way to escape from its cycles is to do good karmas as ordained by one's dharma, in an attitude of surrender to me. One who puts in efforts in this way is said to be discerning and wise, because it is only through the human body that one can attain Svananda. One who does not realize this is a fool 100 times over. This is true of a jiva who, after going through the entire gamut of species and enjoying all sorts of experiences, is still unsatisfied and repeats the same thing even after getting a human body. The consciousness entering the human body should carry out my instructions and become blessed. This is essentially his duty. Shri Gajanan Prabhu then goes on to speak about the joyous state of such a person in the 17th verse. Antaratmaniya prita atmaramo akila priya atmatrapto naro yasyat tasyartho naiva vidyate. Joys of karma. Shri Gajanan Prabhu says, one who is blessed with my grace for observing karma yoga and attaining psychic powers can successfully have lived what is required of a human birth. This enables one to get the psychic powers of the superconscious and supraconscious meditative union. Actualizing superconscious meditative union absorbs the causal matter, and actualizing the supraconscious meditative union leads to the experience of the incorporeal. Such a sadhak experiences Purna Svananda Yoga. In this state, he experiences enlightened peace. He has a continuous vision of the Lord of Svananda, who is the illuminator of the mental vital consciousness substance, addressed as Chintamani. The Atman, which is the illuminator of the 5 tendencies of the mind, is Chintamani. The first 2 of the 5 qualities are thrown or cast away and foolishness. These 2 are very common. The ignorant jivas who are in large numbers firmly hold on to these 2 characteristics. The third one is confusion in the mind of a sadhak seeking liberation. That is, his Atma Chintamani is the illuminator of this tendency. The remaining 2 tendencies are concentration and restraint, which are present in the mind as tools for a yoga sadhak. Thus, Chintamani is present as the destroyer of darkness in the mental vital consciousness substance of a yogi. When the yogi's mental vital consciousness substance is constantly engaged in the thoughts of Chintamani, then his essence and love gets involved, and there is no possibility of any other thought entering the mental consciousness of the yogi. The Atman of such a yogi sadhak becomes me, Chintamani, where he attains complete rest. Since he does not get it anywhere else, that Atmaram is always satisfied. Such a person loves all and is liked by all as well. He becomes the beloved of all. Such a yogi behaves towards others in the same way as others behave towards him, because for him there is no such thing as his own and that of others. The Atman, being in close proximity to Chintamani, is forever satisfied. Therefore, nothing remains for him to be achieved. Karya कृतीनां स नैवाप्नोति शुभाशुभे किचिदस्य न साध्यं स्यात् सर्वजन्तुषु सर्वदा. But the yogi's body still has to fulfill his destiny. Accordingly, he continues to perform auspicious and inauspicious deeds. But he is not bound by the fruits of those actions. He remains unbound because he has no expectations from anyone nor any specific liking for anyone. If he happens to hear of someone criticizing another, that too does not disturb him. He accepts everyone with the thought of each one behaving according to his own nature. He is clear in his mind about his understanding as to what appeals to him and does what is necessary and remains content with it. He doesn't think of what someone feels and remains content. Sri Gargya Maharshi says in his commentary regarding Sri Ganaraja Prabhu's explanation of who would be called wise. When a person gets a human body, out of the 84 lakh species which is capable of leading one to Svananda, a wise man would normally observe his Swadharma. Among them, the one who is worshipful is most excellent, and the dispassionate worshippers are better than worshippers with desires or motives. The sadhak who practices to attain psychic powers of the superconscious and supraconscious meditative union is the most sagacious. Such a jiva endowed with special intelligence controls the wheel of life and ends its topsy-turvy transits. One who has achieved such wisdom should perform his karmas dispassionately, such that yoga itself will enlighten him. This is because even after attaining a human body, if the jiva is absorbed in bodily pleasures like an animal, he will be considered very low. His life itself will be a total waste. A wise man will not have such desires at all. The word Antaratman means attainment of karma yoga, psychic powers. After attaining superconscious yoga nisiddhi and supraconscious meditative union, the yogi has darshan of his Antaratman, the Atma or soul within. Firstly, the Antaratman, where causal matter gets absorbed in a state of meditative union, and where through supraconscious meditative union he experiences incorporeal, the Atman comes to know itself. One who is in absolute love with such an Antaratman and who is completely content without any differences, there is no possibility of any other interest, and when he gets engrossed in such a form, then it can be nothing else but Antaratman. There is consciousness of the presence of one's own self everywhere. Therefore, the feeling of oneness with everyone around him makes him love everything, and he becomes the beloved of everyone. He experiences satisfaction of the Atman. He is drenched in the bliss of his Atman. There is no place for differences for such a person. Such a yogi becomes stabilized in a state of his own self. There are no desires for any other thing or place. Ato saktataya bhupa kartavyam karma jantubi sakto gatimavapnoti mamavapnoti tadrisha. Shri Gajanan Prabhu says, after attaining the psychic powers of karma yoga and understanding the nature of the divine, what should be the behavior and attitude of a yogi? The sadhak is now free to perform his destiny ordained karmas, and as such he experiences everything, good or bad, with equanimity. He performs all his karmas in fulfillment of his Swadharma without attachment to the fruits thereof. Thus, without holding on to the consideration in return for a specific karma, but that his body was conscious of the need to perform this duty, therefore he should go ahead and do them as indicated by his Swadharma. Just as eating and drinking are the basic needs of the body, there is no conflict regarding them. So also it is with the actions relating to the fulfillment of one's dharma. The karmas of one's past lives determines the present birth and also influences the family, community and caste in which one may take birth. Therefore, one should understand that even the dharma of one's birth in a particular caste is also destiny. By keeping this in mind, one should remain detached while doing all actions. Therefore, if the karmas related to being a Brahmin or any other caste is predetermined and preordained, then it would be wise to fulfill them. Karmas performed according to one's mental tendencies are the cause for creation and of bondage, which leads one to the Shukla or Krishna Gati. This is as ordained by the Shastras. When one does good karmas for the fulfillment of desires for material enjoyments, it gives the joys of Swarga after death. This means that one continues in the cycle of death and rebirth for the fulfillment of karmas and it does not leave you. However, if the same karmas are done with detachment or with an attitude for attainment of liberation, the sadhak will get the Shukla Gati and gradually attain liberation. If in this process a sadhak gains internal wisdom but does not attain liberation, and if he happens to die in that state, he attains Shukla Gati and sequentially he will attain Brahma. But a sadhak who surrenders all fruits of his actions to Ganesha and continues to perform all his dharma ordained karmas, he will attain the psychic powers of Karma Yoga and attain the siddhi of being in Brahma. However, there is no possibility of his attaining Shukla Gati or Krishna Gati because the moment his bodily life ends, he is merged in Brahma. This is the process of the path of yoga. Therefore, one should perform one's Swadharma in a detached manner and without anticipating any auspicious or inauspicious outcome of those actions. If one performs all those actions just to please me, he definitely attains me. He further elaborates the same thing in verse 20. Paramam siddhimapanna pura raja rishayo dvija sangrahaya hi lokanam tadrisham karmachara ved. If a person happens to attain the siddhi of Brahma directly or experiences invisibly the sadhak will have to perform his dharma ordained karmas to get it firmly established in his own being and attain completion. The serial order in which this is to be accomplished has been stated here, apart from some other essential things to be borne in mind. A sadhak who is putting in necessary efforts attains psychic powers, but the test of what is right and wrong to be done by him are of three types. 1. First is the experience of the Shastras, that is, whether the spiritual practice that is being done is as per the evidence given in the Shastras or not. One should not do anything without the support of the Shastras. 2. Second is a first-hand experience from a guru. This means whether the psychic powers attained in the past by great men following the instructions given in the Shastras are the same that we are attempting. We should examine and see whether we are getting it or not. The psychic powers attained by some very good sadhaks by following the procedure as instructed by gurus should be looked into. The process of reflecting on the two experiences with sympathy is the experience of the Atman. Thirdly, all jivas taking human birth in reality have the same rights, but each one's experience is different. One may be a king, another might be a servant, or someone through performance of his good actions becomes prosperous. Yet another does nothing at all, but he too attains the same state. How does this take place? This can be known by looking at the experiences of the sadhaks based on their attitude of performing their actions as karma yoga or not. Each one is free to contemplate upon this and decide for oneself to do actions as per one's Swadharma. Shri Gajanan Prabhu says, I have mentioned the above three experiences which a sadhak desirous of success should definitely follow. Apart from the description of the path of Karma Yoga, there is also the description of the states of a yogi in the Shastras. Knowing all of them and applying all of them with faith will enable the sadhaks to attain excellence and also attain psychic powers. Understanding and emulating them as per the Shastras is as good as getting first-hand experience from a guru. If the mind's faith is firmly established in these first-hand experiences, then the experience of the Atman is definitely ensured. Experience means practice. It is definitely going to give psychic powers which can be known through the behavior of the earlier sadhak. The stories of Kashyap, Parashar and Vasisht from the Puranas are well known. Sri Ramchandra attained psychic powers of yoga from Vasishta. Sri Krishna obtained the knowledge of yoga from Sri Gargya Maharshi and attained the psychic powers. All of them were known as Raja Rishis. Even after attaining the state of liberation while living in the human body, they continued to perform their dharma ordained duties as long as they lived in the body, and in the end they merged into Brahma. There have been kings of Kashi who practiced yoga and became Kshatriya Rajarishis and became one with me. In this manner, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, irrespective of the Varnashrama, they may belong to, have all observed their own dharma and attained me. After bringing this first-hand experience into awareness, one should remain observant of one's Swadharma. This is the significance, or else if one wants to be devoid of one's dharma, then that consciousness should become like the great Mahahans, those who lived in the celestial plane and remained without any awareness of one's body. All those who are aware of their bodies are in a witness state. They know what is right and what is wrong. Such people must necessarily follow the path of action as per their respective caste of birth. They should perform all their dharma ordained actions with a detached mind and in an attitude of surrender to me. This is necessary for the collective of the human race. Shreyan kurute karma tat karotyakilo jana manute yat pramanam sa tadevanusaratyasau. Shri Gajanan Prabhu says, what I am going to tell you now is to highlight the significance of Karma Yoga. So listen carefully. Even if a human being has become satisfied with having accomplished his goals in life, has become consciously aware and has no more duties to do, but still he continues to perform actions as a pathfinder for the benefit of other unfulfilled jivas, to demonstrate to them the means of accomplishment that will help them cross over the ocean of life. This has been ordained by the Supreme Lord Himself. Again, kindness and generosity are qualities expected from an excellent human being. Therefore, for the sake of humanity as a whole, he should perform appropriate and necessary deeds. This is neither an order nor a ritual. It only indicates the character of the person. So, an embodied soul takes birth not merely for his self-development, but also to serve as an instrument to be used by the Supreme for the welfare of the world. The balanced life of a liberated soul is used to fulfill the karmas ordained by destiny. He is useful only for this purpose. The Supreme Being makes use of such people, which is seen everywhere. Sri Gargya Maharshi says that those in the light of their accomplished consciousness, by self-effort, know that if they act like other ignorant men and do not do their ordained duties as per the Varnashrama Dharma they are born into, then seeing them, others too will disobey and not do actions as per their ordained Dharma, because they are likely to misunderstand and commit a mistake. They will think that these people are all doing and still they are not doing their karmas, which leads to bondage. Then why should we do our karmas? Such misunderstanding or thoughts will result in the ignorant facing the blame of having sacrificed their Swadharma and falling in their evolution. And the cause of such a mishap will be the intellectuals and the wise who were consciously aware. To prevent such mishaps from happening and to be the reason for the upliftment of people, it is appropriate that such an accomplished yogi should, like an absolutely ignorant person, perform all his karmas as ordained by his Swadharma and thereby set an example. This is emphasized by the use of he in the word sangrahayahi. Again, in the earlier sloka, the state denoted by the word jantubhi indicates that dehe sthita jantava punajatastad apideho asti. Dehe deha vikarasta drishyasta lara swasavarnam anukulam avashyakam tvena karta avyam iti. This means that even though a liberated yogi who has attained the siddhi of identifying with consciousness, as long as he still exists and moves about through his body, he has to perform his karmas. This has been stated very clearly. An intellectual and conscious siddha yogi is ideal and worshipful to all. Everybody respects him and everyone follows his example. Therefore, his behavior towards people should be benevolent. The ignorant are of the clinging type. They do not see what is ordained by the Shastras. Besides, they do not have the capacity to ascertain the truth in that manner. Therefore, they do what Siddhas yogis do, or behave as they do. If they find that the embodied, liberated soul does not observe his Varnashrama Dharma, they become disillusioned. They begin to question, if this realized soul is not doing his karma, why should we do our karma? Since karma is binding, which is the reason they are not doing it, so we too should not do it. They begin to accept such a view. Perhaps the wise men could explain and make them understand that knowledge and the state of consciousness is the basis for doing karmas. But the ignorant may find this distasteful and may even interpret them differently. They may even turn around saying, what is the difference between them? After all, they are all human beings. For this reason, the learned men should necessarily do their karmas. This alone will set an example for the rest to follow. In short, as a means of upliftment of humanity as a whole and for their growth and evolution, the wise and conscious siddhas perform all their karmas with great determination and earnestness, just as the ignorant jivas. Vishtape mena sadhyosti kaschidartha naradipa analabdascha labdhavya kurve karma tathapyaham. Shri Gajanan Prabhu continues, now take my example. Presently I have taken this incarnation out of my desire, but my glory is still that of the Atman, the Supreme Brahmanaspati. Yet I have to necessarily behave accordingly. I have incarnated several times as Moreshwar, Gajanana and several others. Listen to my conduct in each of them. I had incarnated as Moreshwar in the house of Shiva at Kailash Loka. In that incarnation, while living in the Triambak Kshetra, Shiva had performed all the religious rites connected to my birth. He performed my thread ceremony. I even performed all the karmas related to the ashrama of a brahmachari as ordained. Did I do all my dharmas for the attainment of knowledge or for something special? Or was it for the attainment of Swargaloka or for getting a special post or status? Certainly not. There is no material thing in this world that I have to attain or accomplish, or that I have not attained, that I am required to attain. I am the absolute Brahma, resident of Svananda. I incarnated out of my own free will. There is no possibility of any Maya that can bind me. Again, I am the family deity Chintamani in the house of Shiva. While fighting against Tripurasur, Shiva was defeated. He then worshipped me as Chintamani to gain victory over the Asura. When I incarnated as the son of Shiva, his family deity Chintamani became my family deity as well. Therefore, I worshipped him. All these things I did for the absorption of people at large and for them to follow. It is not to attain any position. Presently, I have incarnated in your house as Gajanan. As such, I have performed all actions expected of a person belonging to the Kshatriya Dharma. In Svananda Loka, there is no Varnashrama Dharma. But in Kailash and other lokas, there is Varnashrama Dharma. When I incarnate and take up a body in such places, do I fear that if I observe the dharmas of the Varnashrama into which I was born, I will get into bondage? No, certainly not. Still, for the sake of the people, I followed my Varnashrama Dharma. Then, should not a yogi who has attained psychic powers after spiritual practices perform his karmas? If I, who has assumed a human form, perform all karmas ordained to the Varnashrama Dharma into which I am born, then it is necessary that a yogi performs all karmas pertaining to his dharma. Is this something that has to be told? He concludes this discussion in the next verse. Na kurve aham yada karma swatantro lasabhavitah karishyanti mamadhyanam sarve varna mahamate. Let's look at it from another angle. If we perform karmas according to a dharma in a strict manner, it does cause some inconvenience to the body. If I do not do my karmas when I incarnate, either due to laziness or under the assumption that I am beyond all this and there is no one to control me, then what about Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva and other gods who are dependent on something external? Is it I who reside in their mind and intellect that direct them and they perform actions accordingly? Is it that they perform their allotted work out of fear of me because if they don't, I punish them? Is that my condition? Certainly not. There is no other illuminator of my intellect. I am a completely independent center of power. If I do not act due to laziness or my independence, the whole universe will get disrupted because my incarnations as Moreshwar and others took place in the three lokas. Observing the customs and traditions of the Varnashrama Dharma prevalent in the three different worlds became necessary. If I did not follow them, then imitating me, the residents of all the three lokas, including the gods, human beings, rishis, etc., will set aside their karmas and there will be confusion and discordance everywhere. The primordial elements present in these incidental beings ultimately reach me. That is why I observe the karmas related to Swadharma. Shri Gajanan Prabhu explains in detail to Varenya the ways of interpreting the stages in meditation. As being an intellectual, he is bound to look at it from all angles. Bhavishyanti tato loka uchinna sampradayinah hantasyamasya lokasya vidhata sankarasya cha. He continues, if my giving up karmas is taken as an excuse for everyone to give up their karmas, their children and grandchildren will not get the knowledge of their culture and traditions. Their parents and grandparents will not tell them about it as they would not be practicing it. Under such circumstances, observing dharma-oriented karmas, customs and traditions will get depleted. They will be lost. There will be complete deterioration everywhere. It is by doing one's karma that the body will be kept under control and not deviate into sinful actions. If any thought of doing sinful act does come up, the body does not respond to it. Doing sinful acts will not occur if Swadharma is followed. Otherwise, there will be adulteration and chances of increase in calamities and destruction of humanity as a whole will become imperative. When all practices of Varnashrama Dharma become depleted, there will be only one class everywhere. The result of adulteration in the castes takes one to hell. The lives of gods in heaven are primarily dependent on the performance of Varnashrama Dharma on earth. With the disappearance of dharmic actions of gods are depleted of their source of sustenance. they have to fast and their destruction is preordained. Shri Gajanana says, such a situation will happen if I give up the karmas related to my Swadharma, as this is reciprocated by all everywhere. If my incarnation was for the protection and preservation of Dharma, then how can I allow contradictory results to happen? So a yogi who worships me and gets established in the experience of the divine cannot but perform karma. Observing the mental discrimination as discussed earlier, a yogi can remain in the witness state. All physical actions and their experiences take place until the time of death, even for a yogi, and he has to necessarily perform all actions required for the fulfillment of his Swadharma. Since his intellect is not enchanted by anything, there is no possibility of him getting into bondage. Further exploration continues in verse 25. Kamino hi sada kamer ajnanat karma karinaha laukanam sangrahayaita dvidvan kuryada saktati. Sri Gajanan Prabhu says, perhaps the thought may rise in your mind that if the intelligent one does the same thing as an ignorant man, then what is so special in being intelligent? And what difference would remain between the two? It is necessary to understand the subtle discrimination. Even though an intellectual and an ignorant person may be different in their thinking process, but when it comes to their physical body, they both are oriented towards karmas in a similar manner. Therefore, when both are engaged in karma, one cannot notice or understand the difference. The actions of an ignorant man are always oriented to stimulate and induce by the tendencies of his mind. The verse, Kaminaha sada ajnat karmacharin, Kamai karma kurvanti, signifies the meaning as stated above. On the other hand, the actions done by a knowledgeable person do not carry even a trace of any tendency. This is the main difference. Therefore, intelligent people should do their karmas in a detached manner and for the collective humanity. Externally, the actions of the intelligent and ignorant may look alike, but one is devoid of any vasanas, while the other may do his actions bound by desires and attachments. This is a very big difference that is required to be understood. Under such circumstances, great duty is placed on knowledge. Under the circumstance, what are those duties have been given from verse 26. Vibhinnatvamatim jayya ajnanam karmacharinam yoga yukta sarva karma arpayenmayi karma kritim. An ignorant person does not know the subtle internal system of the body in the same way as an intellectual does. In fact, it is impossible for an ignorant person to know. Externally, they may understand that they are similar as far as Varnashrama Dharma is concerned. If learned people give up their karmas, then the ignorant too will follow them. Even though internally a learned man processes information and actions differently, externally both of them are alike. Therefore, what an intellectual person understands internally should not be disclosed, as the ignorant person may not necessarily have the capacity to understand it. The only risk is of the ignorant person following the intellectual person blindly, without knowing the implications. This is the secret meaning and importance of the pada indicated by Vibhinnatvam anti jahyat. So, the wise should perform their karmas just like others, but with an attitude of surrender to me, and remain quiet about it. This will safeguard him from any obstacles in his spiritual practices, because he would have attained complete oneness with me. He will always be connected to me due to my grace. After listening to the narration so far, Varinya assimilates what he has heard and goes on to get his doubts clarified. He says, I understood about the need for a yogi to follow his Swadharma, whether for himself or for the benefit of the collective humanity. But what are the fruits of actions for the yogi? Please clarify this doubt of mine. This we shall see in the next audio.